8 wins on the spin for Borussia Dortmund. Chelsea, their form is a little bit more patchy. Kweku, we'll come to you in a second, but Nubaid, I want to talk to you about Borussia Dortmund first, because these two teams have never played each other in the Champions League, which is
weird.
Yeah, which is interesting, isn't it? It's almost like those kind of things should happen. You shouldn't just have the same teams playing each other time and again in some sort of Super League. But that's another video for another time.
Nice.
Thank you. Enough now. Just leave it. Dortmund against Chelsea. I'm really excited about this one. I think I have no clue what Chelsea team's going to turn up. And I really wonder that we were talking about it with the Tottenham AC Milan video and Heung-min Son, and how there could be almost a bit of a sort of psychological reset of not being Premier League football, being Champions League football, and the sights, the sounds, the smells of that, a Wednesday night, Tuesday night, and playing in the Champions League. Do you think that's something that Chelsea need to get themselves out of this funk?
Yeah, and in a way, I think you just need to get momentum. I think like Ten Hag, and we will talk about Manchester United in a separate video, what he's done brilliantly is taken every competition very seriously. And so if they drop points in the league, they'll go and beat Forest in the Cup, and so it keeps cycling on. I think Potter and Chelsea actually need something else to sort of put their efforts into. If you beat Dortmund, all of a sudden like you go, oh, we've got momentum now. Like we just beat them away from home, we can get going. But equally, you can also just go, look, that's completely separate to this. Like, we're not good in the Premier League, but the Champions League is a completely different competition.
Which is so silly, really, isn't it? But it's helpful to have that.
Well, I mean, like, Liverpool have been a brilliant tournament team for the same reasons. They can almost, like, stick the Premier League in a separate box to the Champions League. And I think Chelsea will really benefit from doing that. Dortmund, on the flip side, are completely the opposite. Dortmund play the same way week in, week out. So if anything, Potter and Chelsea can actually plan for this game and actually devise a plan that might actually be effective in going against Dortmund. Yeah,
and what I like about Dortmund is, having watched them, and I was watching a lot of clips of all the Champions League teams over the last sort of 48 hours, and the tempo, the intensity, how sort of vertical they are, but it's also good football at the same time. They're really, really fun to watch. But I then think when you put that style of play next to these other teams that are obviously playing against each other in the Champions League, for Chelsea, you wonder if that kind of intensity could be something that's kind of useful for Chelsea to allow them the sort of spaces that they've struggled with. I think Dortmund are going to be really, really strong. They're going to be strong in midfield, but that midfield battle is also an area where Chelsea have obviously strengthened, and it's going to be a really, really key part of the game, because the bulk of the game when you watch Chelsea is in the middle of midfield, isn't it?
And that's been Chelsea's biggest issue, because it's somewhere we've tried to address in terms of transfer window. We've tried to address every single position, bought everybody in the market. But I don't know. It's a difficult one, because Dortmund are the most informed team in Europe since the resumption of league football. They've won every single game, and I think they're definitely boosted by the return of Sebastian Haller, who's scoring goals for them. And with Chelsea, they sleepwalk to draws, and you can't really pinpoint what the issue is. When Chelsea drew against West Ham on the weekend, it went with Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Enzo Fernandez in midfield, and I really liked that blend. Didn't really work. The goal that we scored was predicated on the brilliance of Enzo and him just picking up the pass and finding João Felix. So Chelsea don't really have a set style of play. So you're right. Dortmund have got a consistent way of playing football, and you know what you're going to get. Chelsea, I think, very much relying on the brilliance of individuals to get them through games or get them points or goals, and that's not a recipe for success in the Champions League. And Chelsea fans are, you can call it delusion, because I think the same way, but in the back of your mind or the front of your mind, you think there's a chance of winning the Champions League. But if you haven't got a style of play, you can't win this competition. And I think that's where Chelsea might fall short against Dortmund.
It shows where sort of Chelsea have gone to, in terms of they've got this almost Real Madrid mentality where it's like, well, we're in the Champions League, and in the Champions League we're a little bit different, because that's what's on both occasions when you've won it. The league form's been really, really, really patchy. Obviously everyone's spoken about the transfers and all those players that have come in. Kweku, I'll come back to you on this one. How do you feel about the players that have sort of made it into the Champions League squad and the ones that have been left out?
Probably the best signing in January that Chelsea made, or the signing that settled in the quickest, is Badiashile, and he's going to be missing from the Champions League squad. Clearly, Koulibaly's not fancied by Graham Potter. He's been on the bench or not in the squad for some of Chelsea's recent fixtures. And so you wonder who's going to play alongside Thiago Silva in the heart of Chelsea's defence, Trevor Chalobah. And whether that's good enough to stop a Dortmund team who, like I said, are in great form, it remains to be seen. I really like.
So do you think Koulibaly might not even start this one?
No, I can't see him starting.
Really?
I can't see him starting.
Wow.
I'd be very, very, very surprised if Koulibaly starts this game. He's not seen much first team football in recent weeks. Badiashile is clearly the preferred partner to Thiago Silva, and it's an interesting one, Koulibaly, because he's a player that Chelsea and top teams in Europe have coveted for such a long time.
Yeah.
And maybe it was a couple of years too late, and I feel like when you've got these front-footed or these defenders who are aggressive and on the front foot, their prime it reminds me of like a Vidic or a company. Their prime is so high, but they fall off a cliff very, very quickly because they play in such an aggressive and assertive way. And I think we might be seeing that Koulibaly. It might be a case he needs to settle in a little bit more, but I've not been impressed with what I've seen from him so far. So in terms of going back to your original question, in terms of players that we selected, I think we're going to miss Badiashile a lot, but I love the fact that João Felix is in the squad, because before, when there was a question of like, who do you not select, I stupidly said that you've got to leave João Felix out because he's only on loan. He's not a permanent Chelsea player. What it would do to a player's morale who's a permanent signing could kill their confidence. But we've seen how special João Felix is. He's showing the reason why Atletico Madrid bought him for so much money, and just in the brief cameos he's had for Chelsea. So I think we're going to miss Badiashile, but João Felix could be the difference maker for Chelsea.
How do you feel about this Koulibaly shout then?
I mean, Chelsea fans just seem to really dislike him in general, and I can support that a little bit, because I think when he was signed, because of what's been going on for years, and he was linked to X, Y, and Z, when he was signed, a lot of people said, "Oh, he's going to be like our main centre back." He hasn't been great, but at the same time, Chelsea have been really poor as well. Now Enzo's come in, and I think at centre back in particular, they do look better. I think Thiago Silva is just so consistent, and he just, Chelsea fans love him. Yeah. But you can't say anything bad thing. You can't say a bad word about him.
Why would you?
So I think in the Champions League tie, you've got to play like your most experienced players, and I also don't think Trevor Chalobah's been great. So you're essentially throwing in a young English player and going like, do something for us, or you throw in an experienced player who's played in the Champions League year after year for Napoli, and probably will be fine against a team like Dortmund, who are going to throw everything at it. I think he struggles more so in games where, and when you're Chelsea, you have loads of the ball, and I think he switches off. And so the ball gets hit over his head, and it's almost like he goes, "Oh, whoa, we're still in the game." And that's when he gets caught out, because he has a bit of a dazes off, sometimes dozes off even.
I think Koulibaly, I don't think he's the future. I think that's been made very clear. But I actually think in terms of how, as a manager, you would deal with it, you can go, "I'm going to need your experience for these big Champions League games." And Badiashile would go, "Look, you're the future here. Don't worry about this. You're going to play all these Premier League games." And you can kind of just about keep both of them happy. I think also on that left-hand side, I think Chilwell needs to come into this team, like, surely, after the weekend. Agreed? Yeah? You with me?
Yeah.
That's the short one.
Cucurella's struggling. And you don't ever want to get... I don't ever agree booing your own players, because that's just absolutely ridiculous, and he doesn't deserve that. He's a Chelsea player, he's represented the club. And he's going through a difficult spell in terms of form, but he can't be starting for Chelsea against Borussia Dortmund. It has to be Ben Chilwell. I know that we're managing his minutes, he's coming back from injury, but when you've got Chilwell on the left-hand side, you've got Reece James on the right-hand side, and you've got Thiago Silva at the heart of the defence next to anybody, you feel pretty confident.
Yeah.
And Kepa's showing good form again, which is great to see, because we've kept faith in Kepa, and he's kind of paying that back in terms of his performances. So we need to see Ben Chilwell win, because Cucurella's struggling.
I think it's about releasing the valve with a lot of these players, and for Chelsea, more than any other squad in the world, probably, you can do that right now, really, especially with Chilwell back and fit, making a cameo at the weekend. Look, Chelsea have the star names overall, although, we haven't spoken enough, really, probably about Dortmund. I think you're right, Haller is a massive change for them in terms of having that centrepiece at the top. Obviously, an unbelievable story with him coming back, scoring goals, a Champions League goal scorer in his own right, of course, as well. Royce in a different role, which allows Bellingham, who's probably, of all these midfielders that are going for a lot of money, he's the one, I would imagine, Nubaid, that a lot of teams are coveting right now. And he's having 77 touches per match at the moment. He's just so much fun to watch, so box to box. They've got a lot of really good players, Dortmund, and are a far more cohesive unit. Prediction time. I'll go first. I think there were moments, and that goal, you talk about the João Felix goal, that's a moment where you went, okay. It clicked for a second there. I get it. And I think a big part of that was just seeing someone make a diagonal run past their defenders. So João Felix can offer that moment. They do have the stars, and they've got Reece James and Chilwell back. I just wonder. I think Dortmund I think that chemistry kills. I think a lot of the time, and I think this might be one of the shocks for me. I think Dortmund might just about sneak through. I think the second leg being at Chelsea's makes it very, very tough. But I certainly think they'll win this one. How do you think it's going to go, Nubaid?
Probably the same, to be fair. I think also Dortmund have more options than they've ever had before. And normally they struggle for depth. They have 13 players, and if one gets injured, they're all over the shop. I think they've found fixes this season. They'll find their way through Chelsea, I think. Also, I think the Enzo João Felix moment, although it was they've got something there. At the same time, I was like, that's a moment of like magic from two players. Yeah. I'm not quite convinced that's like a coaching, something that Graham Potter's put into this side. I think they'll get battered, to be honest, at Dortmund. I think they'll really struggle because I think Dortmund are overwhelming when they get going, and they're at home. So I'm going to go 3-0 to Dortmund first. Sorry, bro.
Fight back, son.
Man, 3. Wow. I'm going. It's the first ever time I've been there.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah, and I'm excited, and to just see Chelsea in Europe and have a bit of respite from the league, which is like you said, turgid. It's not been great for Chelsea. I will never in the Champions League back against the boys. I know it's going to be difficult going to Dortmund, but I back Chelsea to get a draw and then take back to the bridge and hopefully get a result at home. So 1-1 draw in this one.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.